Hey guys, so last night was my night to spend in hospital with Max. After the nurses suggested to Ellen that she go home, get a good night's rest and just recharge her batteries, physically and mentally, I offered to stay in hospital with little Max. So Ellen made sure that she had enough breast milk to get through Max's 3-hourly feeds through the night. And at this point, he was being fed through his gastric nasal feed tube. So how was my experience looking after a newborn in a hospital overnight? So first thing I did was I learned how to feed Max through the gastric nasal feed tube. So guys, something that I did for the first time last night was feed Max using the gastric nasal tube. So this is something that Ellen and I need to learn how to do and get confident doing, because there's a chance that Max could get discharged into our care with the gastric nasal tube. So first things first, you got to make sure that you're organized. You got everything that you need all in arm's reach. And then what you need to do, check that the tube is in the right spot in his stomach. That just means that you draw back on the syringe, get a bit of stomach acid and test the pH level. Now anything that's lower than 6 means that you're getting stomach acid and the tube's in the right spot. Then you just fill up the syringe and you wait about 2 to 5 minutes depending on how much milk you're feeding him. Once all the milk's gone, then you just rinse the tube out with just some water. And then after that, I got comfortable for the rest of the night. So the difficult thing about this was the nurse comes in every 3 hours to check on Max. Now, I was doing the feeding, but he still needed his nappy changed and one of the sensors to be changed every 3 hours. The sensor that he had on his foot was to check his oxygen saturation in his blood. That had to be pressed up right against his skin. If that was left on there for too long, it would become like a bed sore and it wasn't good. So we had to move that around every 3 hours. So the next morning, I had a bit of a headache, but that was because I was getting up every 3 hours for roughly about half an hour to do everything and then go back to sleep. So I couldn't tell you how much sleep I got, but it was a lot of broken sleep. And then that just gave me a bit of a headache in the morning. And then by about 8:30 when Ellen came, she was able to breastfeed Max and take over. At this point, the days are a bit weird in the sense that when you have a look at it, sometimes they seem like they're just dragging on and there's a lot happening. But then when you have a look at it another way, they just seem to fly just like that, just because you're doing a lot of waiting around and not much of anything. So although it was a Sunday, our cardiologist was still working in the morning and she popped in and just had a conversation about how his stats were looking and how the last few days were going. And she was relatively happy with what she was seeing. And she even said that we would start to wean him off the gastric nasal feeds and start lowering the top-up amount that he was getting every 3 hours. That was such a good sign that she was thinking that, it could be as early as Tuesday that we could be going home. Now, that was fantastic news. But then halfway through the day, one of the nurses saw some erratic breathing, and when they see something that they're not comfortable with, they call for a review. So we had a different doctor come in who didn't really know Max's situation. So we were filling her in with the details of Max's case. She wasn't really comfortable with how he was breathing. So she rang the cardiologist, pleaded her case with what she was seeing. Our cardiologist said, look, let's bump those feeds back up to what they normally were. Now, this was a little disappointing for Ellen and I because it seems like we're going 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It's a shame that our cardiologist said anything in the first place about us possibly going home on Tuesday, because once those feeds were bumped back up to normal, it was kind of like that was out of reach. And that was just... we just felt a bit deflated because it felt like that everything was just going so well and we're getting some good news, and then all of a sudden things weren't going well. And, me and Ellen were kind of feeling a bit down just this afternoon because, it was good news on the horizon, but then that was just taken away. We had a bit of a conversation before about it, and we just sort of come to the conclusion that if Max needs that extra day or 2 to be 100%, then that's going to be the best thing for us. Because last thing we want is for us to go home and then be back at the emergency department in a couple of days. So as hard as it is, we'll just let this play out and see where we are in a few days. So Ellen was able to go home and just kind of recharge her batteries, just give Emily like some endless hugs because she was missing her so much. And throughout this whole ordeal, we do kind of feel bad, kind of guilty in a sense that, you know, we're giving all of our attention to the twins and not much to Emily. Although Ellen's parents are in town and they're looking after her and they're doing an amazing job, there's just something about not having us there that we know that she's missing us and we're missing her. So that was great for Ellen to spend the night with her and just get that mummy-daughter time. When she came back in the morning, she was quite revived. But then she also had the realisation that this is where she had to be. That night away from the twins was like, I know I've got to be in hospital. I know I've got to be here for the twins. And it's just what she needed, I think. So while I'm sitting here talking about my experience overnight, Ellen's had to do this every other night. I can't take my hat off enough to her because she's doing majority of the caring for our twins. Like she's just doing such a great job, you know. She's just such a great mum, and I can't stress that enough. Something else, overnight, I did my first gastric nasal feed with Max. And then for the rest of the day, I just said to the nurses, hey, look, I've got this. They've just been giving me the milk and I've just been going and doing it myself. So I think all up, like, I've done like 5 feeds already for Max. Ellen's breastfed him and I've fed him his top up through his gastric nasal feed. I think that's really important because the more that we can show the nurses and the doctors that we're comfortable, we know what we're doing, and we've got this, I think the earlier they're going to discharge us because, you know, they're going to be more comfortable handing Max over into our care. So definitely want to get more involved with doing some more of that. Even this afternoon, the nurse that we had doing the afternoon shift, she kept popping her head in and, you know, she was lovely. And she kept saying, hey guys, can I get anything for you guys? Can I do anything? We were doing most of the caring stuff and she'd just do the few bits and pieces that we weren't allowed to do. And she's like, I feel like I'm not doing anything for you guys. And I reckon that's great because it's showing them that we're taking control of Max's care. All right, guys, we're going to call the vlog there. So if you're pregnant with twins, if you have twins, if you're parent of a heart kid, or you're just interested to see what we have going on, look out for the upcoming vlogs. Better yet, subscribe and hit that notification bell. And if you want to donate to Heart Kids, we'll have the link in the description below. And thanks for making it to the end of the video. We'll see you in the next one.